Looking back now, I can still remember the exact moment my husband tried to warn me. The strange part is that he didn't shout. He didn't accuse anyone. He just asked a quiet question that I brushed off like it meant nothing. If I had taken that moment seriously, things might have turned out very differently. But at the time, I thought he was just being jealous. My husband Daniel and I had been married for 12 years. Our relationship had always been easygoing. We weren't the kind of couple who fought loudly or made dramatic scenes. Most of our disagreements were small things about schedules, work stress, or whose turn it was to cook dinner. Daniel was calm by nature. That's why the first comment he made about my best friend Emma caught me off guard. Emma and I had been friends since college. She was the kind of person who filled every room with energy the moment she walked in. Funny, confident, and always the center of attention without even trying. Daniel liked her too, at least that's what I had always assumed. But a few months before everything happened, he started acting differently whenever Emma was around. At first, it was subtle. He would get quieter when she visited. Sometimes he would leave the room early or suddenly remember something he needed to do in another part of the house. I didn't think much about it. Until one evening when Emma had just left after dinner. Daniel was standing in the kitchen rinsing dishes while I wiped the counter. "Does Emma come over a lot?" he asked casually. I laughed. "Well, she's my best friend," I said, "so yeah." He nodded but didn't say anything else. The next time Emma came over, Daniel stayed upstairs most of the evening. After she left again, he asked another strange question. "Have you ever noticed the way she talks to people?" he said. "What do you mean?" I asked. He shrugged slightly. "I don't know, something just feels off sometimes." That's when I laughed. Not because I was trying to be cruel, but because the idea sounded ridiculous to me. "Daniel," I said, smiling, "you sound jealous." He looked surprised. "I'm not jealous," he replied. But the conversation ended there. I didn't realize it at the time, but that was the moment when Daniel stopped trying to explain what he meant. Over the next few weeks, Emma started coming around more often. She had recently gone through a breakup and needed someone to talk to. I was happy to be there for her. Sometimes we would sit in the living room for hours talking about life, while Daniel watched TV quietly or worked on his laptop. Emma had a way of making people laugh. She teased Daniel often, making playful jokes about how quiet he was. "Your husband is the most mysterious man I've ever met," she once said with a grin. Daniel smiled politely, but I noticed he didn't laugh. Then came the dinner. It was a Friday night, and Emma suggested we all go out to a new restaurant that had just opened downtown. Daniel agreed without hesitation, which surprised me slightly. Maybe things were finally going back to normal. The restaurant was crowded and loud, but Emma thrived in that kind of atmosphere. She was telling stories about her work and making jokes that had everyone at our table laughing. Daniel was quiet again, but I assumed he was just tired. At one point, Emma leaned across the table and said something teasing. "You know," she said, looking at me, "I think Daniel secretly hates me." I laughed. Daniel looked up. "That's not true," he said calmly. Emma raised an eyebrow playfully. "Really? Because you barely talk whenever I'm around." Daniel hesitated. "I just prefer listening," he said. Emma smirked. "Well, maybe I just make you nervous." That's when I made the biggest mistake of the entire night. I laughed again. "Daniel thinks you flirt with everyone," I said jokingly. Emma burst out laughing. "Do I?" she said dramatically. "Maybe that's just my charm." Daniel didn't laugh. He set his fork down quietly and looked at me. "I didn't say that," he said. The mood at the table shifted slightly, but Emma quickly brushed it off with another joke. The rest of dinner continued normally, but something about Daniel felt different. He spoke less and spent more time staring at his plate. On the drive home, the car was unusually quiet. "Are you okay?" I asked. Daniel kept his eyes on the road. "Yeah," he said. But the way he said it told me he was. Later that night, after we got home, Daniel finally spoke again. "You trust Emma a lot," he said. "Of course I do," I replied. "She's my best friend." He nodded slowly. "I hope you're right about her," he said. That sentence confused me. What does that mean? Daniel hesitated for a moment before answering. "I just think some people enjoy attention more than others." I rolled my eyes. "Daniel, you're overthinking this." He didn't argue. Instead, he said something that didn't make sense until much later. Maybe I am. Over the next few weeks, Emma kept visiting. But Daniel became more distant every time she was around. Then one afternoon, something happened that changed the way I saw everything. I came home earlier than expected from work. As I walked toward the front door, I noticed Emma's car parked outside. That wasn't unusual, so I didn't think twice about it. But when I stepped inside the house, I heard voices in the living room. Emma's voice. And Daniel. At first, I thought they were just talking. Then I heard Emma say something that made me stop walking. You know she trusts me completely, Emma said softly. Daniel didn't respond. Emma laughed lightly. That makes things easier. My stomach tightened. I stepped closer to the doorway. Emma was sitting on the couch leaning toward Daniel in a way that suddenly looked very different than it ever had before. Her voice dropped slightly. You know I could make you less miserable if you wanted. Daniel stood up immediately. Stop, he said firmly. Emma looked surprised. I'm serious, she said. You deserve more attention than she gives you. Daniel shook his head. You need to leave. Emma's smile faded. For a moment, neither of them noticed I was standing there. Then Daniel turned and saw me. The look on his face told me everything. Emma turned around slowly. The room went silent. Suddenly, every moment from the past few months replayed in my mind, the way Daniel had acted uncomfortable, the questions he had asked, the warning he had tried to give me, and the way I had laughed. Emma grabbed her bag quickly and walked toward the door without saying another word. The sound of the door closing echoed through the house. Daniel didn't say, I told you so. I didn't need to. I sat down slowly on the couch, trying to process what had just happened. I thought you were jealous, I said quietly. Daniel looked tired. I wasn't jealous, he replied. I just saw something you didn't. The worst part was what Emma had done. The worst part was realizing my husband had tried to warn me from the beginning. And instead of listening to him, I left.